Hello everybody, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you are well. And I was just sitting around recently thinking about some album covers. And more specifically, I came to think about how, as I'm sure a lot of us know, that there are a lot of great looking record covers out there, but which when you hear the album, that the music doesn't quite match up to the expectations that the cover gives you. And this is of course for a variety of reasons. Perhaps it could be that the record, that the album cover, that it made the music, that it was like a bad representation of the music, or simply because the music, simply because the music wasn't as great as you had hoped. And here's the point. I was specifically thinking about great looking, to me, of course, this is all subjective, but to me, great looking record covers which where the music on the albums themselves isn't that great. And I picked up 10 albums that I want to show, and none of these, I wouldn't say none of these are bad records, but as I said, the thing is, when I look at a lot of these, pretty much every one of these record covers, and a lot of these, pretty much every one of these is by a band which I love. But when I look at these record covers, I like my first thing when I pretty much saw the cover the first time, and still is today, is wow, this is a cool or beautiful or neat looking picture, album cover. But then when I look at the track listing, and more specifically when I put on the record, it's like, it could have been used. The album cover could have been used for something better. The artist, it's the music isn't like the greatest representation of the work. Of representation of the art which I did for the album. And to get into it, actually I'm going to start with I have like one album here which isn't part of, and I just want to show it quickly, it isn't part of this main 10, but it was, as I picked out these albums, it was at one time part of them, of the albums which I'm going to show. But to immediately show it, and I just know that some are going to be upset, but here we go. Judas Priest, Redeemer of Souls, their kind of comeback album. Angel of Retribution was pretty much the big comeback record for them. But this was 6 years, it came out 2014, so it was 6 years after Nostradamus, and it was like sound-wise like a return to the classic heavy metal. And while that may be true, I know that a lot of people like this when it came out, and people were pretty much like, whoa, this is like some said it was like the best since Painkiller, and I was like, and I'm still like that, and I wonder if this holds up as well for a lot of people as it did back then. But I chose this album and I wanted to show it as a part of these main 10, which I'll get into soon. But then I looked at it and I was like, I'm not digging the cover as well. It's decent, but I just don't feel like it, and like just don't feel for the music. It has some good songs like Halls of Valhalla, Secrets of the Dead, but not a bad album, but it just the fire wasn't there. But luckily it came back on the follow-up, Firepower. But that is a story for completely another video. But yeah, to get into the main part, as I said, great looking record covers, not so great sounding music. And yeah, let's go with another one which might piss, I'm guessing, a lot of people off. Iron Maiden, A Matter of Life and Death. And this is, I mean, still today, this is my least favorite album, pretty much by far, of the albums that they did since the reunion with Bruce Dickinson and the comeback with Brave New World. And well, let's get into the cover first. I really like it. As I said before, I like the combination of greenish and blackish colors, and it's, I mean, especially after the, I mean, Dance of Death, which the prequel to this, which when I saw the cover to that, I just thought it was some kind of joke when they presented it on their website. But anyway, A Matter of Life and Death, I really like this. It has, of course, this strong anti-war theme. As I said, great looking colors, and I also dig the fact that Eddie is not in main focus. And I like also this kind of imagery, this tank military imagery that they use here. So great looking and grim looking cover. But the music, as we all know, they did play this in their in its entirety on the tour, and it was, so to say, a mixed reaction when people went to see them and found out. But I mean, once again, this is such an album that I listen to perhaps at least once a year and try to understand what a lot of people really like about this, because there are a lot of people that see this as their later era masterpiece and some kind of dark, brooding, thematically wonderful album. But I mean, what they have to say about the songs, well, I could say that a lot of them did. I saw them in Stockholm in 2006 when they, of course, played this entire album, and a lot of the tracks did grow on me. I mean, there was certain kind of better effect to them when I heard them live. Like Different World was a good opener. I remember that Brighter Than a Thousand Suns was. It was it did have this emotional flair to it. I remember with the spotlights and so. But other than that, I mean, For the Greater Good of God, that is by far my favorite track on the record. A really great one, and I love that they dug it up on the latest tour, Legacy of the Beast. But there are tracks such as. I mean, Reincarnation, Benjamin Brigg is decent, but I mean, the guitar sound, as is on the whole album, it just sounds quite thin. And tracks such as Out of the Shadows and Lord of Light, I mean, I've heard this album a lot of times, but those tracks and some others there, I barely can remember how they sound. I mean, the Legacy, it was better live once again, but a lot of these tracks, a lot of later era Maiden, as we all know, the critique is that the songs are too long and they have too long intros. So I mean, perhaps one day I'll understand this, but if I don't, I'll live happily on. Here's another favorite band of mine, and a lot of I know that a lot of people also like this band, Sabotage, of course, classic US metal, US power metal, however you want to put it. And a lot of people hold this as a classic album from 1985. Yeah, 5, Power of the Night. The title track is of course a Stone Cold classic. As you can see, I also got it signed here by John Oliver, the vocalist. But yeah, Power of the Night, great song. In the Dream, the closing ballad. Warriors is a great one, but Unusual is decent. But they're just, I mean, tracks such as Hard for Love, Skull Session, Stuck on You. I mean, they're about as uninspired as perhaps the title would say. Once again, I perhaps like this a bit better when I discovered Sabotage like 12 years ago or something. But I mean, it hasn't aged well with me. It's like a lot of these records, once again, what I said, they're not bad records, and this one isn't bad, but once again, but the cover itself is very cool looking, very iconic. Of course, there's like the fist of the metal child, like Power of the Night says, raise the fist of the metal child, but no, and this once again, where I would perhaps expect a heavier record than what the music actually is. Or all right, here is Budgie with Night Flight, the next to last album that they did back in the 80s, and then they did one more in 2006, I believe. Derek Riggs, of course, famous mostly for Iron Maiden, as we all know. He's the guy behind this cover, and it is a great looking cover. Once again, great combination of mostly green and black. Quite a bit of yellow also, but great looking cover, and they have their like Budgie mascot on there. The music itself, I turned to stone. The opening track is decent, but I mean, at this point, and this album came out in '81, they've lost a lot of the steam and a lot of the rawness that they had, and it's nothing wrong with that, but it's just that, like with the Maiden album, I look at a lot of these tracks and I can hardly remember how they sound like. But I remember that it isn't bad, but it definitely isn't very, very good. But Derek Riggs is always on point. But and I mean that's like that's like a lot of my reaction to a lot of these records. Like I said, once again, not bad, but moving on. Saxon, Rock the Nations, and this cover, as you can see, about a cool looking, like enormous public cover and all of the flags here, and it I mean, it's a really sort of like telling, or like sort of suitable pictures in the year and the time that we're in. This record, or this record cover, this very cool looking one, was done by a guy named Paul Gregory. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that he's the guy that has been doing a lot of their later era, or perhaps worked with them in like over 20-25 years or so. So he has done, if I'm not mistaken, that's the guy that has done a lot of other cover stuff for Saxon, and I'm not sure, this could have been his very first work for the band, but don't take my word for it. Yeah, very great looking cover, but I mean, if you ask me, this and not the follow-up Destiny, this is the low watermark for me when it comes to Saxon during the 80s. Rock the title track, it's a good, decent one. Battle Cry, I really like. Waiting for the Night, I mean, they definitely wanted some sort of a melodic rock AR hit single with that one. I dig the track, but I mean, and then became tracks like We Came Here to Rock, You Ain't No Angel, Running Hot, Empty Promises. Once again, I can barely remember how those songs sound. But what I can remember how it sounds is Party Till You Puke, of course, featuring Elton John as a guest, and that song is it's about as great as the title would have you believe. Northern Lady, the closing track, it's a acoustic mellow ballad. That one I do like, but once again, uninspired, and the fault doesn't lie with the fact that they've, as a lot of bands did during the 80s, that went in a more and more commercial direction. The fault lies in that the songs don't hold up, they just feel uninspired. Another record which definitely feels that it should have been much better. Asia Alpha from 1983, of course the follow-up to the massive success that was their debut album from the year before. And then they chose Don't Cry as like the potential hit single, like the new heat of the moment. And it's pretty good, but I'm not surprised that it didn't become such a huge hit. And when we have the tracks themselves, The Smile Has Left Your Eyes is a good track, but it was much better when they played it live. It had a completely, pretty different arrangement. So, but the two killer tracks on here are The Heat Goes On, fantastic, as well as the closing epic Open Your Eyes. I mean, Eye to Eye, The Last Note, True Colors, all decent, but it just doesn't have. I mean, you can feel that they struggled with this follow-up to the massive success that was the self-titled debut, and perhaps they released it a bit too soon. And I know that there was like some personal struggle among the musicians in the band, but what I haven't mentioned, and which of course I had to mention, is Roger Dean, the mastermind, the artist behind the cover. And I mean, he's done like a ton of work, not just for Asia, but for Yes, and who else? Uriah Heep, of course. I mean, he's done a lot of killer stuff, and once again, he doesn't disappoint. Beautiful artwork, but yeah, it should have been better. Now, next we have Neil Young with Trance from 1982. You can see what the cover was like going for, that we're moving to the future, into the 80s, and with all this retro nostalgia, that 80s retro nostalgia that we're in right now, I feel that this cover is quite suitable and pretty cool looking. I mean, representative of the past and of course the modern, so to say, future. But what can you say about the 80s Neil Young? Definitely among a lot of people, it's not his, pretty much nobody has this as his as their favorite era of his, but the more, it's definitely a more 80s sounding album, with like the guitars are like run through or replaced by a lot of computer effects, and I know what the theme was of this album. I've read that he like did this album and like had this procession or like voice decoder or whatever you call it. I mean, on the song, I mean, the sound of the album was it was like a theme, because his one of his sons, who has some sort of a speech disability, I believe, and he like did it to like some sort of a tribute, or to like connect this album to his son, and I mean it's admirable, but the songs themselves, well, what I can say is Like an Inca, the closing track, that is a killer one. But Little Thing Called Love, I remember that. But once again, I remember a lot of these tracks. As I'm sitting right now, I can barely remember how they sound like. I can kind of remember that they sound decent. Once again, this is probably not a bad album, but I should probably revisit this soon, as with several of these ones, and perhaps also this one. And now perhaps a lot of people will once again be upset, but here we go. acdc, For Those About to Rock, I mean the all-time classic closing track for the band ever since they released this one in 81. Perhaps I don't remember if they opened with this one on this tour, but anyway, classic, iconic cover with the cannon. But yeah, and the cover, I also like, I don't know if it's the US issue. No, this is a US issue. I mean, there's one version of this album cover which I like even more. There's a pressing which is black, and the cannon is, I don't know if it's some other cover or perhaps grayish or something, but yeah, I like that one even more. But I really like the simplicity in this one. It almost looks like some sort of an old school bootleg. So I mean, it's not like pretty to look at if you like compare it to the Asia or Jardine stuff, but it is as I said, simplistic and iconic, of course. But I mean, after Back in Black, this, I mean, really quality-wise, this is really a letdown. Like, Put the Finger on You, I remember, is a decent one. Inject the Venom, Night of the Long Knives is pretty good if I remember. But once again, a common theme, as you can probably hear, the tracks are just not memorable. And I mean, if you're acdc at the top of your game after Back in Black, how can you not have memorable tracks? Once again, I know that this album has somewhat of a classic status with a lot of people, but I just don't hear it. Now the last three are a bit of kind of a special ones in their own way. I mean, all of these are special in their own way, but Deep Purple, Slaves and Masters from 1990, for many people the low point of their career, the only album that the so-called Mark V did, with Joel and Turner on vocals. I would perhaps agree that this is their least good album, together with Abandon from 98. It has some killer tracks though. King of Dreams, The Cut Runs Deep, Wicked Ways is great. Fortune Teller is decent. Love Conquers All. They thought perhaps they would have a hit single, but it's once again decent, pretty good. But you can just hear that the fire just wasn't there anymore, at least not with all of the members that played here. I do like the record cover. I mean, I always kind of like this. Of course, the track refers to an obvious reference to the track Fortune Teller with the crystal ball. And I mean, it's pretty telling that, of course, when they released this album and they switched out, they fired Ian Gillan and had Joel and Turner, and the entire Fortune Teller theme, it's like pretty telling for the band. Like, it's some sort of like, what will come now, the future is unclear. So I believe that that's the topic that they could have been going for. And I really dig like the imagery here, of course, their classic 80s logo, and then this, you can see the keyboards here. Obvious reference to John Lord, and like this truck, I always thought it was a reference to the classic space trucking, and of course you have some other instruments and hourglass and whatnot. I always thought this was a quite clear looking cover, and I also have this is some sort of like a Russian bootleg or like unofficial issue of it, which they have actually mixed up the track listing a bit for, I mean, some reason, but yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you can see what kind of quality they worked with, because the colors, it doesn't exactly give the image justice here. I mean, the printing which they used, but yeah, cool looking cover, and I always thought that ever since when I first saw it. Here is a great looking one, and another one which I have two versions of. Storm Witch, Eye of the Storm, German melodic metal, power metal from the 80s, and let's focus on by all means, let's focus on the front cover, and perhaps not on the back, which features, in my opinion, perhaps one of the let's just say less pleasing group photos of the 80s. I really like, I mean, really truly a magnificent cover. It's of course clear, a clear reference both to the band, like Storm Witch, and then like the titular, or however you want to put it, like Storm Witch and like Eye of the Storm. It really fits, and it's yeah, really beautiful looking cover. And here, this one which I show is actually the Canadian pressing, but I also have the original, this is the original German one. And as you can see, the Canadian, they have like more zoomed in picture, while the German has a more full version of it, and the title and the band logo on the sides. I like both of these actually. They're both beautiful in their own way, and in fact I can't really decide which which is my favorite. Perhaps I would choose the German one. But speaking of the music, well, for one, once again, they try to go, like Saxon, they try to go in a more commercial direction, like with tracks like Paradise, Heart of Ice, I Want You Around, The Ballad, Take Me Home is a good one. Eye of the Storm, the title track, it's pretty much the entire real power metal sounding track on the record, but definitely not one of their greatest outputs, but perhaps their greatest record cover. Just cool looking stuff, and I would actually really like to find some sort of a poster with this image. The very last one, which is also a bit of a special one, is Virgin Steel and Age of Consent. So this is, I believe, like their third or fourth record from, I believe the fourth one, from 88. Once again, another band which during those times tried to go in a more commercial direction. But what's funny about this record, this is kind of a schizophrenic one, because on one hand we have tracks such as We Are Eternal, 17, a really cheesy sounding one, Stay on Top, which Uriah Heep also did. I mean, like 80s commercial sounding, but then you have tracks such as Lion in Winter, and especially the all-time classic The Burning of Rome, which those tracks, especially The Burning of Rome, points towards the more epic, once again, harder US power metal sound, which they would adapt with full force in the 90s on albums such as Marriage of Heaven and Hell trilogy. But it doesn't. The Burning of Rome is fantastic, but a lot of the other ones, On the Wings of the Night is pretty good. I mean, We Are Eternal, the closing ballad, is nice. Once again, it's not that I'm bothered by the commercial sounding aspect, it's just that the songs aren't that memorable for the most part. But the cover is really cool looking. Another like of this, like painted Conan the Barbarian vibes, but also like some kind of science fiction going on around back there, I would say. Yeah, really cool looking cover. And to also show this one, this is the reissue which came out, I believe, like 2011, so it's quite some years now, for Age of Consent. As you can see, they and this is because the lead singer of the band, David DeFace, and of course the man that has been the leader of the band for all these years, he has been doing this reissue campaign, and for a lot of these albums, at least for this one, he decided to change the cover art as well. He hasn't done that for all of them, but for at least a couple of them. And this is also, the original one is probably my favorite. You can see it on here, a comparison. But I do like this one as well, and it really fits like of the more harder metal epic theme which they came to be known for during the 90s. And what's also special about this one, I mean, you can really see that the band, and especially David DeFace, weren't happy with the album, because they did try to, what he has done here, as on a lot of their other reissues, is he has changed up the track list a bit, and like adding some newly recorded stuff, some remix stuff, some stuff is gone on here, like Stay on Top, I don't believe is here, and it's a 2 LP set, and closing the second LP is pretty much a like just entirely new album, while the LP1 is the original, which some like different, as I said, different track listing. Like The Burning of Rome is the opening track on here, and which was really a wise choice. Does this new stuff make the album a masterpiece? No, I wouldn't say, but it's, I mean, both of these versions is a really interesting listen, and still some great material on both of these. And what is also special is that, as you can see, perhaps here, that this reissue has the original cover on the, like here on the back, it's represented there, but pretty vaguely. Perhaps it is also here on the, no, I don't believe it's on the gatefold. But yeah, Virgin Steel, Age of Consent, and that closes my 10 choices for this topic, which, well, we could name it Great Record Covers, Less Than Great Music. And yeah, that was it. I want to thank everybody that has watched this video until the end. If you feel free to join into this topic, you could either leave a comment with albums that you feel have great looking covers but not so great music, or if you like, feel free to do a video of your own and continue this theme, this thread. But yeah, I also want to thank all of the new subscribers to this channel. I have seen that there have been quite a few over the last week or so. So yeah, thank you for watching whatever I do and talk about here. And if you aren't a subscriber and if you like what you see and hear on here, well, then yeah, please subscribe. Alright people, have a great day and I'll see you soon again in another video. Bye bye.